Our flagship brand, Retail Middle East, has a 16-year-long legacy of being the foremost retail intelligence and knowledge sharing platform. Marketing is all about identifying and understanding the customer's needs. In today's session, we will touch up on the science behind marketing, the deep and rigorous analysis which marketeers must conduct, the astute judgments they must make, choose the technology that can exponentially grow their business, the power of ideal collaborations, the loyalty that sincere communications, useful content, and brand's social standing can garner, and presenting it all with creativity. Marketing is both an art and a science. And in the words of Andrew Davis, I quote, "Content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust. Trust drives revenue."
I'll start my first question with Kalika. So what are the differences between the pre and the post-COVID retailing landscape? And how has this affected customer confidence? And detail how it has affected you and Visa and your customers specifically.
So taking a step back, Visa operates across both sides of the ecosystem, merchants as well as consumers, either directly or indirectly. And for consumers, contactless payments have become nearly as critical as wearing face masks and using hand sanitizers at checkout. According to Visa's Back to Business study, which you just quoted, so 90% of consumers have changed the way that they pay, including shopping online when possible, as much as 60%, and using contactless payments and not using cash as much as anymore. So 40% of consumers have specifically told us that they've stopped using cash. Part of the reason this change is, of course, that contactless payments offer peace of mind during a time when physical contact at checkout can put not only consumers, but also the workers at risk, the staff. At the same time, on the merchant side of the equation, it has also encouraged businesses to adopt digitization for similar as well as other related reasons. As a result, currently for us, at least a third of all face-to-face transactions across 50 countries globally are represented by contactless. And it's interesting to note that in our region, in UAE and Saudi, the figure is significantly higher, with about 80% in Saudi and 50% in the UAE being done with contactless devices. Moving on to the merchant side, what we've seen is that the significant shift which happened during COVID was for small businesses, the ones particularly that still have cash on delivery as a primary mode, to understand the shift in consumer expectations and plan accordingly. Our impact tracker shows that cash-only merchants experienced a negative trend in terms of their businesses, with as many as 50% and above dropping in revenues. And this can be very, very difficult for any business, but specifically for small businesses. So as a result, we saw that this pushed about 70% of those who earlier did not have acceptance of payments to install some sort of point of sale machines. So that's been a big shift. Besides the ones which were cash on delivery, there are certain businesses which have been purely face-to-face to begin with, and they had to shift rapidly online too. For example, some of you might know of KidsApp, and when we were speaking to Karim Bedas, who is the founder of KidsApp, which is a platform which connects parents with enriching activities for their children, he told us that due to COVID, his business went directly from his best month ever down to zero. But not being one to give up easily, Karim adapted his approach from face-to-face to online. And in fact, he's featured as one of our hero merchants on the visa.com website for a campaign which we'll discuss in a little more detail later in the discussion. So to sum up, Andrew, payment technologies of all kinds have been embraced by both the merchant and the consumers. And if we might call it a silver lining, this has been one of the silver linings during these challenging times.
So Byron, I wanted to throw it over to you next.
So I think we were in the possibly fortunate position where being grocery and being online, we were considered considered essential, as was like anything that stayed open was grocery and medical supplies and pharmacies and such. So we obviously saw a massive uplift in pretty much all our metrics. I think we're also put in a position where we faced a lot of new customers who possibly wouldn't have otherwise chosen to shop online, but were forced to when shops were closed. Particularly in Saudi, there were many periods where it was in complete lockdown and curfews imposed by the government for everyone's safety and everything. So that was the first point. Very, very quickly adapting to a massive uplift. And for our business, obviously, the consumer-facing mobile app, that's not too much of a problem. We had to do a bit of work in the background to make sure we could handle so many new customers. But really, the process behind that, where we're obviously picking and packing and delivering and getting everyone all their groceries on time, that probably became the biggest challenge that we faced during the peak of the crisis, as did, I think, many other retailers in similar situation. But going to trying to build up that confidence, I guess it was actually quite a unique situation because, as I say, a lot of people were forced into shopping online they may not have before. So we were really trying our best to sort of onboard and guide as much as possible these new customers, and just trying to make sure that this potentially their first experience ever shopping online was in fact a positive experience, because obviously we all benefit from them becoming loyal customers thereafter. So that was very much our goal and intention. And then on the other side of it, touching on the contactless payment side, we in fact took the decision, well, we're almost forced to also turn off our cash on delivery payment method, of which in the kingdom and over time since we launched the app, we obviously saw that slowly declining as we built more trust with our customers and they're happier to shop online and pay online. But it's always still been there, and it did account for a very decent chunk of our transactions. And literally overnight, we had to dissolve that basically and rely entirely on contactless payments. So that again was another big shift, and things that we had to change our messaging around, and then very much speak to customers around the health and safety concerns, and this is why we're doing it, and really that this was in everyone's best interest for the employees and customers also, which then led on to pretty much, I think my biggest job in the marketing department was to pretty much change our entire message of what we were saying. You know, pre-COVID, it's a pretty competitive landscape, obviously, selling groceries and running partnerships with a lot of the FMCG brands and running promotions and all the rest of it. But it very quickly changed to very much a community approach that was undertaken within the kingdom, driven by the government, I think, where the whole message was just about looking after the community, you know, making sure everyone had what they needed in these like extremely difficult times and that, and making sure all of the staple items were always available and that we could always get things to people on time. Less focus on deep discounts of things and such, and more merchandising and kind of stock in the app in such a way that it promoted these and it made them readily available, and very much concepts of working together to make sure the community was looked after. So that was probably the biggest shift in a marketing approach that would have otherwise been more of business as usual, you know, very competitive, driving sales, to now taking a step back almost and looking after a broader community and working together to get through something. So yeah, I think that sort of sums up our experience that we had.
So let me move on really next to Candice. And Candice actually works with Marriott International. Can you talk about your efforts? And we spoke earlier, and I think what you did with what you've been doing actually over at Marriott is quite interesting.
Pretty much at the other end of the spectrum, based on the previous two speakers. COVID-19 has not only had a significant impact on our business, but is also sort of changing how we operate our hotels. I will say we have started to see green shoots and early signs that indicate this inherent desire for local residents to travel and explore, whether it's just quick staycations, vacations, or even dining. But this hasn't happened overnight. We've had to pretty much start from ground zero in terms of re-engagement. And one of the biggest focus has been raising exacting standards to an even higher level when it comes to protocols for cleanliness. Under this new normal that people keep referring to, health and hygiene has obviously been at the very forefront of customer minds, and we've had to absolutely play into that a lot more so that they have confidence to come and stay with us. We internally refer to it as this new age of cleanliness, where we sort of have to look at different tools as we have this laser focus on keeping cleanliness top of mind. We've also had to look at ways to keep this going, whether it's through our own communities or within our hotels or even beyond. So one of the things we looked at is setting up a Marriott Global Cleaning Council. This is very much focused on developing the level of hospitality cleanliness and standards, and basically doing what is required to stay ahead of the game. What has happened in the last 5 odd months has been with COVID, that's basically pushed and fastened behavioral change. Now, I know we've been speaking a lot about technology. I thought I'll quickly just also touch upon technology. While we are a service-driven industry and everything that we do is very much people-driven, technology continues to be an enabler and one that is focused on taking friction away. And I think with this contactless approach, that friction element comes into play even more. So while we've looked at the basics, and this is not new to anybody within hospitality, we've looked at electrostatic sprayers when it comes to disinfecting areas outlined by HWO or CDC. We've also looked at technology in terms of elements like mobile key service. This is something we started a while ago. Today, we have mobile key service options at about 3,000 odd, 3,300 to be precise, hotels globally, where guests, where they don't want any sort of contact, they can book with their the keyless entry through their mobile app, check in, and go straight to their hotel. They can make any special request through the app, but also continue to chat through the app. So absolutely focusing on no contact. One of the focuses that has been, I'd say, an outcome of COVID, and I said that's absolutely pushed behavioral changes, is our focus on digitizing every moment through the guest travel journey, whether it is about them thinking about travel, planning a trip, staying with us, not even traveling at all. We've looked at different ways of keeping you dreaming and keeping you wanting to get onto the road and travel, because right now domestic travel is very much the focus, but also keeping interactions going through different digital tools, whether it's you as part of dreaming and of a destination based on your last travel or based on your bucket list, having little backgrounds that you can set up similar to what you've done, Andrew, to even this virtual armchair sort of taking you to destinations through some of our partners when it comes to content. So really looking at technology to help you dream. I have to say we're very grateful to some of our loyalists and some of our guests who continue to keep in touch with us and want to stay with us. And we're seeing this with the increase in terms of domestic travel and some of our hotels seeing amazing occupancy in the months through summer.
I want to move on to Maria now. As a destination marketing executive, you have a completely different industry in many ways. It's much more around entertainment and much more around a daily or a weekly customer. So can you just go into detail about what you're doing?
One thing that we've seen during the closure is that particularly the marketing teams have done some of their boldest work when they were challenged and when they mixed creativity and data, which was pretty impressive. So some of the really cool innovations that were born during COVID were like a drive-in cinema that we had under the ski slope of Mall of the Emirates and that have made international headlines for weeks. We were one of the first companies globally to be able to come up with something so quickly. And then throughout the closure, we were listening to our customers. So we obviously put the customer at the heart of everything that we do. And we used to run weekly consumer sentiment research and collecting feedback through NPS and so on, to try and figure out what was it that was going to make our consumers and customers comfortable to come back. So obviously we've put several measures in place, like all of the panelists have mentioned, particularly Candice. We have contactless experiences. We've reimagined the entire customer journey to make sure that our customers are comfortable with coming back. Obviously, food is a huge part of everything that we do as well. So everything related to food is now also contactless. So customers can purchase tickets, food online, get to the cinema, for example, or Ski Dubai, go straight into the theater without touching anything. So again, that was all a combination of taking the data and the insights from customers and translating them into actions. We're lucky and fortunate to have quite an agile team, because speed and agility were actually two really key things during this crisis. And yeah, I think we've managed to gain the trust of our customers back, and we've seen an increase week on week on occupancy in the cinemas.
Sahar, you have another unique angle, one that is purely retail with Marina Home. Can you explain the unique situation you found yourself in?
So, like many other businesses, the rapid spread of COVID sparked a huge disruption across industries. And one of the most visible effects of that around the globe was the impact on physical retail space. With malls and high streets closed, and even in the region, the impact was really profound. So for the world of brick and mortar, a lot is fundamentally going to be different in the future. With customers more and more comfortable within the digital space, retailers are now focusing on how to capture this lost volume over the last months and to really optimize on sales through the digital channels. So for us, within the luxury home fashion business, once malls were open once again, soon enough as customers got familiarized with the safety and hygiene drill, we realized that within our particular large format stores, the deterring factors weren't about safety or contactless payment in our sense. And it was more about being true to the experience that the customer was walking in for. So we, like most other businesses, were geared up to really handle the worst of it all that was coming our way. The mindset was, surely in such difficult times when there was so much unemployment and a higher sense of price sensitivity amongst our consumers, the priority wasn't going to be luxury home fashion. Much to our grateful surprise, we learned otherwise. And we realized that there is this fundamental human psychology that would always affect the consumer confidence ultimately. And so within our consumer mindset, everybody's attention was now on being isolated in their homes, being away from all means of entertainment that they were otherwise used to, and focusing on their space, their comfort zone, and how they could really enhance it, how they could update it, how they could beautify it. And for me, this is, along the notes of emotional instant gratification, where they wanted to feel really proud of their homes again, whether they were yet able to share it with their family and friends yet. So we saw an amazing spike up in home sales in the summer months, none like we've ever seen before. And, being from this part of the world as a business owner, everyone's just become accustomed to the fact of the summer slump, unless you're obviously in the tourism or hospitality industry. So this just basically took a complete turn to see where, for the first time ever, homeowners were spending so much time in their homes, and they had this avenue of this unspent holiday budget where they're like, we've got to redirect this, we've got to do an upgrade. So thankfully, we saw a wonderful continuous amount of business pouring in, not only from consumer, but B2B as well. And the demand has never been so high, I think, amongst a lot of the redecorating markets looking to spend in their homes. So yes, COVID has taught us how to really be quick to action to the needs of our consumers across the region. And one of the things that hasn't changed, in fact grown, was the consumer's appetite for freshness, for product, for inventory, for inspiration. So I think our focus has come back to what we were always known for, our authenticity around basically providing them some of the best, designs and sticking true to quality and service. So that's where we've been spending our time and attention, and of course working on some very interesting digital projects to come above later in the year.